Have you ever found something that was never meant for you? Something that was hidden, buried, burned, but not forgotten? She left me this letter. I thought it was just an old stained piece of paper, probably something nostalgic, maybe sentimental. But what I found behind those folded edges wasn't memory. It was a war of silence, a war of betrayal, a war wrapped in a letter that was never supposed to reach my hands. Before we go any further, I want to show you something. It's just a few words from the letter. I shouldn't even have read them. They're burned now, faded. But one line haunts me. You'll pay for what you did, even if it takes everything. What would you do if those words were addressed to you? And worse, what if they weren't? What if you opened a letter that was never meant for your eyes and discovered something that changed your entire history? This isn't just about a piece of paper. It's about revenge. It's about a secret that was buried for years and set on fire the moment I opened it. Stay with me, because by the time this story ends, you'll realize this wasn't just about my life falling apart. It might change the way you see your own secrets too. The kind you've kept, the kind you wish you'd said, the kind you regret never sending. Now, let me pause for just a second. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever kept a truth to protect someone else, if you've ever opened a message and felt the ground shift beneath you, then hit the like button right now. It tells me I'm not the only one who's ever been here. Because the truth is, this letter destroyed more than one life, and you're about to understand why. You see, it wasn't written recently. It was sealed nearly 17 years ago. It was meant for someone I used to love, someone I thought I knew better than anyone. And yet, she hid everything. She wrote it, sealed it, and never sent it. Why? That's the question that's been burning inside my chest ever since I found it. Hidden inside an old shoebox under her bed, sealed in wax, like something out of a forgotten war. I didn't open it right away. I waited, because part of me was afraid of what it might say. But curiosity always wins. And when I finally tore that seal open, what spilled out wasn't just ink. It was grief, guilt, a kind of rage that felt cold and calculated, but still deeply human. She knew everything. Things I never told her. Things I didn't even think she could know. How? That's the question. And tonight, I'm going to show you, word by word, sentence by sentence, until you see, just like I did, that some letters were never meant to be read, and some truths, they're heavier than silence. Let's go back to the moment I found it, because that's where everything starts, and nothing, from that second on, will ever be the same. It was late, almost midnight, when I found it. I wasn't looking for anything, really. Just trying to keep myself busy, you know? Grief has a strange way of making you clean places you never touched while they were alive. Her closet still smelled like her. There was this perfume she wore that used to drive me crazy in all the best and worst ways. I remember standing there, completely still, like if I breathed too loud, she might vanish all over again. I started pulling down old sweaters, shoe boxes, folded notes from people who didn't matter anymore. And then I saw it. A book, one of those big, heavy photo albums that nobody really opens anymore. The leather cover was cracked, and the pages were thick with dust. But what caught my eye wasn't the book itself. It was what was sticking out from between the pages, just barely, like it had slipped in by accident, or maybe been hidden on purpose. It was a letter, aged, yellowed, no envelope, no name, no date. My first instinct was to put it back, respect it, leave it untouched. But you know how it is. Sometimes the things we shouldn't touch are the ones we can't help but reach for. And the moment I held it in my hands, I felt it. This wasn't just paper. This was weight, guilt, time. This was something she never wanted me to find. I sat on the edge of the bed, same one where we used to argue about the smallest things. Like whose turn it was to do the dishes. Like who forgot to say, "I love you" that day. But those weren't really the things we were fighting about, were they? Not really. Underneath those small fights was a silence that had been growing louder between us. One we both heard, but neither of us dared to break. She stopped asking where I was going. I stopped asking why she was crying in the bathroom with the door locked. We lived together, but everything between us had already started to fall apart. And this letter felt like it belonged to that silence, like it was born out of the 1,000 things we never said. I didn't read it right away. I couldn't. I put it down on the nightstand, but I couldn't walk away from it either. I just sat there, looking at it, wondering what truth could possibly be inside that she never dared to say out loud. For years, I thought she hated me. For years I convinced myself that her silence was punishment, but now I realize it was protection. More than that, it was heartbreak, and whatever she had written, it was meant to live in that in-between space, the one where pain and love coexist without needing permission. You're going to understand what she knew, but not yet. Because once I read that letter, nothing, and I mean nothing, made sense the same way ever again. But before I tell you what was in it, I want to ask something. If you've ever held on to a letter, or a secret, or something that changed everything without ever being spoken, just write "I understand" in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. Now, here's what happened next. The next morning, I woke up to the letter still lying on the nightstand. I hadn't slept much. Not really. I just kept turning over the same thought in my mind. Why now? Why had it surfaced after all this time? It was like the universe waited until I was finally too tired to keep running from the truth. I reached over, picked it up again, and for a moment I almost tore it in half. I don't even know why. Maybe because I knew that once I opened it, I wouldn't be able to unsee what was inside. But I didn't tear it. Not then. I opened it slowly. My hands were trembling. The paper was soft, worn, and warm from where it had been sitting under the lamp. There were only a few lines written, not even a full page, but every word hit like a stone. The ink had smudged in places, like maybe tears had touched it before I ever did. Her handwriting was still delicate, the same way it had been on every birthday card, every note she left me on the fridge back when things were easier. And then I read it. I knew long before you said anything. I saw the messages. I smelled the perfume that wasn't mine. I waited for you to come clean, but you never did. That sentence, just that, felt like a punch straight to the center of my chest. It made my mouth go dry. It made me feel 10 years smaller. I folded the letter shut again, pressing my thumb so hard against the paper I thought I might rip it. For a few seconds I just sat there, holding it like it was something living, breathing. And then, I don't know what came over me. I walked into the kitchen. I turned on the gas stove. I held the corner of the letter to the flame. The edge caught fire instantly, curling in on itself, blackening. The scent of burning paper hit the back of my throat. Bitter, acidic, like it didn't want to die quietly. The words started vanishing, line by line. Her pain, her truth, becoming ash in my hands. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't destroy all of it. Something inside me, something primal, something guilty, made me pull it away from the fire at the last second. Only half of the letter burned. The rest, the most important part, I kept it, charred edges and all. They begged me to get rid of it, said it would only make things worse, that keeping it would be like feeding a ghost. But I couldn't let it go, because part of me felt like if I destroyed it, I'd be letting her disappear completely. That's when I remembered something. A night, years ago, when she asked me where I'd been, not in an angry voice, not even a suspicious one, just quiet, like she already knew but needed to hear me lie out loud to confirm it. I did. I lied, and she never brought it up again. Until now, until this letter. And just as I sat back down, trying to breathe, trying to understand what I'd just done, the doorbell rang. Loud, sharp, out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting anyone. And for a split second, I thought it might be her. If you've ever felt that rush of fear and recognition at the same time, that moment when the past knocks louder than the present, tag someone in the comments who might understand. Because what came next, no one was ready for. I froze, the kind of stillness that doesn't come from fear, but from disbelief. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. The doorbell kept ringing, 3 times, 4, then silence. I didn't move. My mind raced through every possible name, every face that might be standing on the other side. But no matter how hard I tried, none of them made sense. Not in that moment. When I finally opened the door, no one was there. Just a small envelope on the doormat. No name, no stamp. Just one line written on the back. You think you know everything. I swear my blood went cold. I brought it inside, closed the door slowly, and sat down with that envelope in my hand, still smelling faintly of smoke from the half-burned letter. For a few minutes, I didn't open it. I just stared at it. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't over. It had never been over. Reading her letter had been like cutting open an old wound. But this felt like salt in it. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but the phrasing, sharp, bitter, intimate, It mirrored the same kind of quiet rage she had once buried in her words. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, playing every memory on repeat. Every dinner where we sat in silence. Every touch that felt more like obligation than affection. Every moment she looked at me like she knew, and I looked away because I was too much of a coward to face it. If I had burned that letter completely, would I be free now? Would I feel less like a traitor living in my own skin? Or would I still be here, haunted by the possibility that she knew, that she waited, that she gave me every chance to be honest and I chose the silence every single time? That's what kept me up. Not guilt, not grief, choice. The weight of choosing silence, the weight of choosing lies, the weight of being loved by someone who deserved so much more than I gave. And just when I thought I had uncovered all the pain, I remembered something else, something small, insignificant at the time, but not anymore. Her best friend, Marianne, the one who was always around, always checking in, always asking questions that seemed a little too specific. There was this one night, months before everything fell apart. I heard them arguing in the kitchen. I didn't think much of it then. I thought maybe it was just about work or family. But now, with the letter in my hands and that new envelope sitting unopened beside me, I realized Marianne knew. She had known all along. And maybe, just maybe, she was the one who slipped that second envelope under my door. Because inside that letter, there were things only two people could have known. Her, and the person she told. That was the moment everything broke. Not when I read her letter. Not when I saw the ashes curling on my fingertips. But right then, when I realized this wasn't just between the two of us anymore. It never had been. And now the silence wasn't just mine to carry. It belonged to everyone who stood by and said nothing. Everyone who knew and let it rot in the dark. If this story touched a nerve, if you've ever carried the weight of a choice that changed everything, right, I felt that in the comments. I'm reading every single one. And what happened next, even I wasn't ready for. I finally opened the second envelope 3 days later. I had left it untouched on the kitchen counter, walking past it like it wasn't calling my name, like it wasn't vibrating with questions I didn't want answers to. But the truth doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It waits. It settles deep into the corners of your life, whispering until you can't drown it out anymore. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no signature, just a few lines. But those lines weren't written by her. I recognized the handwriting. It was Marianne's, and what she wrote shattered what little ground I had left to stand on. She knew you'd never confess, so she decided to leave something behind that would force you to face yourself. This was her way of making sure you couldn't rewrite the story in your head after she was gone. That one sentence, that brutal, piercing truth. She didn't write that letter because she wanted revenge. She wrote it to make me remember, not remember her as a victim, but as someone who had seen it all and chose not to burn me for it. That was her power. Not vengeance, not punishment, but restraint. She had every reason to expose me, to ruin everything. And instead, she chose silence. A silence so loud it followed me into every room, echoed in every mirror I looked into after she was gone. She didn't want to destroy me. She wanted to free me. But freedom, when you're carrying guilt that deep, feels like a life sentence. I thought I'd feel relief, some twisted kind of closure, but I didn't. I felt small. I felt hollow. Because the truth is, the person I used to be couldn't survive the weight of what she wrote. That man had to die for me to understand any of it. And maybe that was the point all along. This wasn't about revenge. This was about redemption. It was about seeing how far you've fallen and still choosing to crawl your way back to something like honesty, something like forgiveness, even if it's just forgiving yourself. You asked me earlier how I changed. I'll tell you, I stopped hiding. I started speaking. And most of all, I began carrying the weight of my choices out in the open, instead of pretending they didn't exist. That letter burned, but it didn't vanish. Half of it still sits in my drawer, the edges blackened, the ink barely visible. But I don't keep it because I need to remember what I did. I keep it because it reminds me who I can still become. And just when I thought I had uncovered everything, when I believed that was the final page, Marianne handed me something else. A second letter. One not addressed to me. One written to someone I never expected. And that is where this story truly begins again. In the next video, I'm going to show you the letter she wrote to another person, and why that letter shattered whatever was left of the world I thought we lived in. It's not what you think, and I promise it will hit even harder than this one. So before you go, if this story moved something inside you, if it reminded you of something unsent or unresolved, I want you to say so, right here, in the comments. Just write, "I carried that too," or tell me what line hit you the hardest. I'll be reading all of them, and I want to know which piece of this story lived inside you, even before you heard it here. Leave a like if this shook you, not because it helps the channel, though it does, but because it helps someone else find the story they didn't know they needed. And if you're still here, still listening, still breathing this with me, subscribe. We're only just getting started. This channel isn't about stories. It's about truth that was never supposed to be spoken. And now it's your turn to speak.